does it look like a white supremacist?
Oh, daddy pump it.
You goddamn small Victorian child, I'll give you the whooping cough.
Put it to the side, said I put it to the side. We don't keep y'all out of focus, we just leave you all behind. Ay, put it to the side, said I put it to the side.
What is up, everybody? So I've been wanting to do this video for a while now, and it's kind of just a little intro slash, just information on how to do an HR swap. My car is HR swap. I didn't get all of the information I wanted to get with that video and all the series and all that. So this time around, I'm going to show you what you need, what you keep off of a parts car, and what you have to buy in order to put an HR in your DE vehicle. All right, so first and foremost, buy a donor car. It doesn't exactly have to be a specific car, but we had this 2008 G35 ready to go. So we are gonna use this for pretty much every part we need aside from the transmission. So I spared you guys the nitty gritty. I pretty much have this ready to get pulled out. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the swap out of the car, but I'm also showing you the few things that you're gonna need from this car to utilize for your DE car. So for one, I utilized the power steering bracket and reservoir from the HR car. They are spaced over the slightest bit to the left because of how the intake needs to come through and clear. If you use your DE one, your intake is gonna hit it. Next thing is AC lines. If you're gonna be retaining AC, you're gonna need the smaller high pressure line and just this section right here, from here to down to the compressor for the low pressure line. As well as you're gonna be using the AC compressor from the HR, obviously alternator and power steering pump as well. And then you're gonna need to get a hold of a JK41 transmission. The CD09 that is in the G35s and like DE cars are not the same, unfortunately. You cannot use your transmission, so you will need a JK41 and a JK41 clutch setup as well. And then you're gonna want to get you one of these. Now, this is not something you're gonna use from your donor car unless you have HRZ as your donor car. You're gonna need to get an HR harness from a 2007, 2008 350Z, and then you're gonna send it over to VPF Racing, and he's gonna convert it for you. And to make your life easier and Ben's life easier, make sure you get it from the 07, 08 350Z. It's a lot more compatible, it converts a lot easier, and it's less money you're gonna spend. Now you can go with any conversion style harness you'd like. There's Guilty Garage, Z Fever, all kinds of different ones. But Ben has been super reliable. He's very communicative, and he makes the process easy. Also, that's the one I'm running in my car as well. So I'm gonna support the homies. Now is also a good time to go ahead and pull this engine apart. So what I'm gonna do is once this engine comes out, it's gonna go on an engine stand. We're gonna break down the whole front cover, do the galley gaskets, do water pump, do valve cover gaskets, just the essential stuff to keep this engine healthy. I didn't want this to get too long-winded. Being as like I've made 2 videos so far that have not been edited, not been put up, and it's literally because I get too long-winded. I just start overthinking the direction of the video, and I don't want to do that anymore. I think I'm just going to kind of film as we go and just make sure I'm getting key parts of what we're trying to do, and then editing and uploading. But I want to get back to a pretty good upload schedule. I'm not gonna make any promises like I have in the past, because I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, we're gonna do it once a week, and then we don't. So just look out for uploads. As I get more consistent with filming, I'll be able to get more consistent with putting content out, obviously. I've also just kind of taken a break from all that, considering we've been working a bunch. But when this car came in, I really wanted to get the whole HR process, because I didn't do all that with my car. Woo, another day, another dollar. It is a hot, humid day in Texas. Just had some rain, so it cooled off a little bit. It just makes it more muggy out here. You can see, man, I'm all... Anyway, so we got the HR on the stand. I didn't show the process of pulling the engine out. It's not really, something we have to worry about. Like I said, this whole guide is just more so the things you should do before it goes in, things you're gonna need for it to go in, and then the swap being done itself. But your parts car and taking that apart, that's up to you. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna break this thing down. Take all the accessories off of it. We're gonna remove the front cover, oil pan, all that good stuff. Gonna inspect the bottom end, see how it looks. Usually you can pull the oil pan, take a look in the bottom of it. If there's any kind of like glitter, maybe copper, things like that, you might as well go ahead and get another engine. But if you don't see anything like that, or if it's like minimal, you'll be all right. So we're gonna do galley gaskets on this thing. I know they haven't been done. So it's a big step because these HRs are notorious for that kind of thing. The galley gaskets get worn out, they get brittle, and then they fall apart, and then you start losing oil pressure. And what that'll cause is these VCT solenoids will start losing oil pressure. They'll go out. They'll start giving you codes for it, and that's no fun. And then if it gets any worse than that, you're gonna have a rod knock, and that's really no fun. So I'm gonna get my time lapse set up, and we're gonna break this thing down. So while you're doing this whole process, another good idea would be to do valve cover gaskets. Now, if you're a VQ owner and have been a VQ owner, you know that these things are notorious for leaking. They end up with oil inside the coil packs, cars misfiring, that kind of thing. But we have a brand new set of valve cover gaskets for this. And then also, because I'm already here, I think we're gonna reseal the entire oil pan as well. All right, we got the compressor running and we got Izaak sanding over there, so hopefully you can hear this pretty well. All right, so we got all the accessories off, and now we're gonna get the crank pulley off. I am not gonna tell you guys this is how you do this, but this is how I do it, and I hadn't had any problems doing it this way. So take a real long pry bar, and you're gonna jam it up into the crank pulley right here. And what this will do is this will jam it up, and then you're gonna put torque on it. Now, I also usually use a short 19, not a long 19, that way you don't slip. So let's crack this loose real quick. Let's see if I can do this one-handed real quick, hold on. Oh boy, nope, I'll be right back. All right, get that crack loose, and then you can just kind of follow it up. Ah, there we go. And pull it out, good to go. Make sure you store this in a safe area because you do not want to mess up this surface right here. Even though it is already a little messy, but we're going to clean that up. But don't scar this because then your front main seal won't seal. Something I suggest, bolt box and a part shelf. Just have everything you can put on the shelf so everything gets stored correctly. And then all your bolts can go in the bolt box. So now that we're at this point, I'm going to go ahead and pull the oil pan off because I want to really see what's in there. If you're seeing, like I think I said this earlier, but if you're seeing any kind of particulates in it, you want to make sure you don't see kind of like, glitter or like copper pieces. You might see pieces of the galley gaskets. That's kind of normal for these engines. But really look for any kind of like sparkliness to the oil. When I drain the oil, which I made a mess, oil looked pretty decent, but the pan is really going to tell you what's in there. Like on the bottom of the pan, you'll really see what's going on there. Okay, I'm really happy about this, but I am kind of surprised. If you look, not really much to write home about. I mean, there are some particulates, but it looks like that's honestly some of the gasket from like the seal where I broke the seal. But no shininess, there's nothing reflecting. I don't see any copper, which is awesome. It means our bearings should be good to go. Good stuff. All right, so now we're gonna remove the front cover. And the way you do this is that there are two bolts that go in the inside of it, inside the oil pan right here, on the front cover. Then there's all of the bolts all the way around the front cover. And you also have to remove the water neck right here. This thing can sometimes be a pain in the butt. Just loosen the 3 bolts, and what I usually do is take a pry bar and go behind it and just kind of, put some like forward pressure on it, and it pops right out usually. So if it's difficult, be careful because you don't want to tear the seal that's inside there. Otherwise, you have to replace that seal. Okay, so one thing, there is a bolt right here, and it's just above the one for the thermostat housing, so make sure you get that. But sometimes people confuse them with these front cover bolts right here for the VCT cover. But it's just gonna be 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then over here, it's 1, 2, and 3, and then there's one just below the VCT cover as well. And then there is one right here in the center. This one's missed quite a bit. I see it all the time happening with people. And then there's one right down here that's probably covered in oil. You're not gonna see it. And then on the bottom corner is another tin down here. All of these tins are the same size, so you don't have to worry about putting them in a specific order. However, these 14 millimeters, I wanna say it's, And then the same thing applies for these 14 millimeters. They're all the same size, and they can pretty much go in any spot. All right, once you get all the 14s out, you'll be able to pull the front cover I did not get the two ones that are inside the oil pan. I'm gonna show you them real quick, but I'm gonna take them off camera. So they're right there and right there. You're gonna see in the time lapse, but I love how, like, I told you guys not to miss this very center bolt because a lot of people miss it, and I left it in on purpose so I could show you guys that, and then I missed it. So you're gonna see me struggle with the front cover for a moment there, but that's it. It's off. Now we get into the nitty gritty. So in that last clip, I told you guys you were gonna see in the time lapse, but unfortunately my time lapse decided to go 30 times normal speed rather than just 5 times normal speed. So all of the footage I put together is going to be real fast up until this point, because now we fixed that with my other camera. All right, so next part of this, we need to get the timing chain off. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put this engine to the top dead center, and the way you do that is okay, so I'm going to teach you guys a trick. All your coil packs obviously are, you know, going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 1 will be the furthest coil pack forward on the engine, which is going to be this side. As you can see, this one sits back a little bit. This is number 1. So bank 1 is always going to be your passenger side. What you're going to do is remove the spark plug from this one, and then I'm going to turn the engine over until we get to all the timing marks in the right spot. So let's go ahead and rotate the engine around until we get number 1 cylinder up to TDC. Okay, so something I want to show you guys as well. Make sure you put your crank pulley back on before you put the bolt in there. You can actually do damage to the threads if you just use the bolt and that's it. So put your pulley on just as the spacer that it needs. Ooh, the wind is picking up today. And then you're gonna rotate the engine over, and what you're looking for, as you can see, they're not here, but down here, there are these little dots on the cam gears. And you're gonna rotate your engine over until this, whatever you decide to use, I use my magnet rod. You want that to be at the topmost position, but the way you know that you're on the compression stroke is when these little alignment dots, if I can catch it again, are gonna be on the top side. And I'll show you where they line up momentarily. All right, so once you get them rotated, you'll see that little alignment mark lines up with that little notch there. And this little alignment mark lines up with that notch right there. And I'm talking about the notches because you can see the notch here. The dots are kind of where it's at, but you want to really get with this notch here. So, and then you go ahead and remove the crank pulley, and then we'll get to removing the chain. And just to give you guys an idea, I'm talking about the topmost position. So I went a little bit too far, so when you come back, you'll see this rises up. And then what you want to do is rotate until you start to see it go back down. So it starts to drop down a little bit right there. And then you just line these back up. Once these are lined up with the notches, you are pretty much there. Okay, so another quick thing. This here is the timing tensioner. And what you're gonna wanna do is get you one of these. They're a little, almost like a thumbtack. But what they do is they go inside this hole here. Oh, it's not exactly locked in place. Oops, I'm gonna have to put the camera down for a sec. But essentially you're gonna take this, and there's a little hole inside there, and there's a dowel. Line it up. Oh, there it is. Okay, never mind. All right, there we go. Chain's removed. I already went ahead and pulled the bolts out, but here's the water pump. And I'm gonna show you guys how to remove this water pump without damaging anything. I have had 2 or 3 varying, VQs were brought to me because someone did the water pump and they cracked the rear housing. So I'm gonna show you how to avoid that. You're gonna get some 12 mil bolts. They are, I believe, actually they're M10s, M10 by 1.5, I believe. And the water pump itself is threaded a little bit bigger than its normal M6 bolts. And you can just thread these in. And all you gotta do is grab yourself a 12 millimeter socket and just work these down evenly. So you're gonna, do a couple turns on this one, and then come down here and do a couple turns on this one. And you just keep doing this until essentially the water pump just falls out. A good rule of measure is pretty much once it gets a little too tight for one side, just go down to the other side. You'll kind of feel the tension because you don't want to damage the threads, obviously, but that's it right there. And, oops. But there you go, water pump is out. Easy as that. All right, so now you're gonna want to get this whole passage cleaned out. There's a bit of grime and nastiness. We'll get that all wiped out. I did actually see a lot of deposits from what looked like there was stop leak in this engine at some point. And that stuff is gross. But yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just want to get anything that might be clogging this hole up or anything like that, because that's your weep hole. And then that's it. Put the new water pump in. All right, so what you want to do is get some lithium grease, just to be able to grease up these O-rings. My water pump came with the O-rings already on it. It's a Gates brand, but some of them do not, especially the OEM ones. They usually come separate. One O-ring is bigger than the other. You can kind of take a look at them to make sure that you know, but the bigger O-ring goes to the front, smaller goes to the rear. All right, there we go. Water pump is done. This thing's real quick and easy. It's just in and out. Just make sure everything gets cleaned up. You can sometimes we'll have a little overrun of this, grease there, but good to go. Now we have to get these galley gasket covers off. This part of the process can be a little daunting for people, and I completely understand, because taking the cam gears off doesn't sound fun, because you also have to do the timing for the cams. And I'm here to tell you I have a secret way that you don't have to do that, because of this bolt right here. It's a little difficult to see, but that one there can be hard to reach. But I figured out the perfect way to get around that. All right, so what you want to do is grab one of these kind of kits right here. Just a driver kit, and you're going to want a number 3 driver, and you can kind of allow it to sneak in there to get enough into the head, and it goes around so you have enough room. And what I do, and what I would suggest doing, is getting one of these little ratchets here for a bit driver, and that'll allow you to get in here. Oh boy, this one's being a little complicated. Here we go. And get that loose, get it right past the gear. It is a little tricky once you start getting it loose. You probably have to use your hand a little bit to get in there, but that's the only one that's really, difficult to get out. All the rest of them are pretty easy. I'm actually pretty surprised right now, because sometimes you'll get these breaking apart and you'll find these are just loose already completely, and none of these are. So that's real good. It's a good sign. I want to say that this engine had been serviced in the past at some point, like while the previous owner had it, but it's good to see. It's good to see that none of these are real messed up or stripped or anything like that, and then none of them are loose. So good stuff. All right, so what I'd normally do is take that little contraption there, and I'll crack all these loose, make sure they're all loose, and then you can just kind of take your bit driver and use it to pull them out. Now remember, these are a number 3 driver, not number 2, not number 1. Use those, you're gonna be stripping stuff out. You don't want that. And I just let these just drop to the floor. Like, we're gonna throw them away. They're not reusable. They are torqued to yield, so once you have them torqued down, that's it. Oh, also I spoke too soon, because this one down here was actually loose. So, but just one out of the rest of them, that's not too bad. All right, so now we got the galley gasket covers, and these gaskets can be such a pain in the butt. They are usually real stuck down on them. Sometimes you get lucky and they'll start to lift like pretty easily, especially if they've already been coming off. And you can see down here actually, where I said that bolt was loose, see that popped right off, no problem. So obviously this is where we were bleeding off oil pressure. So what I like to do is get a handy dandy heat gun and just heat these up around, just kind of evenly spread, and then just take a razor blade, get underneath it, and just start peeling it all off. I'm gonna go through this real quick. Be back in a moment. Another recommendation: switch your blade fairly often. I've already gone through 3 of them. This is my 4th one, because this material is really gonna dull out the blade. So try not to use a dull blade, because that also will scratch it. But yeah, periodically change out the blade, and what you want to do is kind of get like almost a scraping motion to where you're downward like that, and just kind of bring it out. This thing, after heating up for a little bit, pretty much came all up on its own. But these rougher parts, obviously where it's torqued down, you're gonna want to use the razor blade, get it all cleaned up. All right, all cleaned up and ready to rock. We're gonna put these these back on real quick with the new gaskets. Okay, so I just saw that the EPS kit recommends that we copper coat these. So we're gonna spray these with a quick layer of copper coat on each side, and then we'll put them on. This is the copper coat that I'm talking about. You can pick this up at O'Reilly's. Pretty much any parts store has it. And it doesn't have to go insane, just a, you know, nice even coat all the way across. Let it dry, and then flip it over, do the other side, same thing. All right, so while we wait on that copper coat to dry, another thing you want to do is clean up all of your sealing surfaces. So you can see, all right here, there's still a bunch of silicone there. But go to O'Reilly's, grab you one of these little scraper tools, and they work wonders. Most of the time, you can just get in just about any kind of crevice with them. But they're mainly for sealing surfaces and stuff like that. Like that. It's so hard to do this one-handed, especially left-handed. Hold on, let me switch real quick. Okay, but yeah, just kind of go around. You want to get all this old gasket off, and you want to make sure if you see, you know, before you put the front cover on, make sure there's nothing inside here, nothing like nasty, and get it all cleaned up. And you also want to clean all these sealing surfaces and make sure they are like nothing is in them. You don't want anything pinched between the gasket and the cover because that can cause an oil leak. All right, there we go. All those sealing surfaces are good to go. And now we're going to clean off the cover, and we're going to do another coat of copper coat. That's funny. Copper coat, another coat. No, we do another little spray of copper coat on these on the other side. This stuff gets dried up pretty quickly. And you don't have to really worry about sticking. Like I said, it's just a, you know, conservative coat on it. Nothing too ridiculous. What this does is it helps distribute the heat all throughout the whole gasket evenly, so it's not getting any kind of hot spots on certain parts of the cover and the gasket. That's the theory anyway. And for the front cover, it'll be the same thing. Just kind of go around with this tool, get any areas you see like these where it's kind of, you know, sticking up. Pull that off. Just get it all cleaned up and make sure you leave nothing inside here. Most of the time what I do is I'll do the front cover upside down. That way everything kind of just drops to the floor rather than staying in these little crevices and stuff like that. All right, so in preparation for putting the covers back on, go ahead and get you 2 of your bolts. These are going to be hex head countersunk bolts. They normally come with whatever kit you buy. Otherwise, you'll have to get them, you know, from the dealership. But don't use the Phillips head ones. They are the worst. I've gotten really good reviews on the kit that we're using here. I want to say it's the ESP kit. Is that what I said? What did I say? EPS? EPS kit. And these fit perfectly. Use a little bit of blue Loctite on them. Camera right quick. So I got my bolts. I already got Loctite on them. And put your gasket on. And just kind of maneuver it into place. And put the bolt in. You can just do these hand tight for now. What you want to do is get all the bolts in. All hand tight. Do not torque them down just yet. Wait until you actually have all of them in, because they like to actually like snug down and sit. Sometimes you'll feel them if you do them, you know, before the others, one before the other. You'll feel it kind of has some tension in it and its weirdness. So you want to make sure you just get them all hand tight in. It kind of be a pain in the butt when you can't see them. Hold on. There we go. Oh no! Don't do that. Yeah, just hand tight. And then do that all the way around, and then you're gonna torque them to 11 pounds. All right, you can turn. All right, there we go. All torqued down and good to go. Next, you'll wanna do your O-rings here. There's the EPS kit comes with 2 O-rings from Nissan, and these are what's gonna seal off the oil supply for your VCT solenoids. And there we go. Pop them in. They fit pretty snug. But just as you're gonna, you know, put your front cover on, just inspect, make sure they're there before actually putting it on, because you don't have to pull it back off. That would not be fun. All right, so this is what I was talking about with the chain links. So there's a yellow link, which lines up with the dot, lines up with the notch. And there's another yellow link, lines up with the dot and the notch. And then the orange link down here goes on the dot on the lower chain, or the lower gear, I mean. Now what you want to do is when you put it on, you'll feed it around, get it around the water pump, and make sure the water pump's actually catching correctly. And then what you want to do, if let's say the chain is too far, you know, this way, like mine was a little bit ago. Actually, there's still enough stocking that you can kind of see that happening. See how that's, you know, going between the 2 marks right there. you don't want that. So kind of hold that there, and that'll give you the tension you need. However, if you are too far up and can't get it down there, you can move the cam gears. You kind of just slide them over a little bit to give you a little more tension on it, and then I'll take slack in here, which is what you want. You want all the slack here before we put the tensioner back on. So now, if the cam gears happen to snap one way because they are spring loaded, that's fine. Just move the gear back to where it was at and line it up with the notch, and you're good to go. All right, so now I have the guide back on and the tensioner. Nothing's tight just yet because I wanted to show you a little something here. This little thing, obviously I put the pin in there, but there's also a release right here for the ratcheting system. So this release sometimes will have to get squished, so you'll have to hit the release, push this in, and then you can get your bolts in. When you do this, try not to just kind of guess where things are at and get this lined up for the most part. That way you don't strip out your bolt holes, because you want this to be as easy as possible going on, and you don't want to strip those out because replacing the rear cover is no fun. All right, so when you're doing your cover, do not, under any circumstances, put silicone on these surfaces right here. These are both for those little seals that we put in, the the galley gasket cover, and you don't want to clog those up with anything. But everything else, this surface, the whole surface all the way around, and then you're going to want to put a glob of silicone on this corner right here, and this corner right here. Obviously, I'm going to clean everything up before we do that, but yeah. All right, front cover is back on. So now we're gonna go ahead and go around with our 10mm bolts. There is a torque sequence for these. Just find it online. It's pretty easy to follow. But yeah, all the 10s and the 14s are gonna go back in. And then after that, I'm gonna pull this thing outside and I'm gonna power wash it. That should be done before, but I really wanted to get the work done first, so the hard part was out of the way. And we're gonna power wash this thing and get it all nice and cleaned up before it goes in the car. All right, starting to look like an engine again. Got most of the accessories back on it. This is about where I'm gonna stop though, because I wanna get all this like nasty dirt and grime on it. I'm gonna go ahead and soak it down with some purple power and let it sit for a little bit. And then we're gonna power wash it, get it cleaned up. And then should be ready to come off the stand at that point. Put the clutch on it, put the transmission on it, put the harness on it. And then in the next video, we're gonna go ahead and pull the DE swap out of the car and get this HR swap put in.